Hey, so this is going to be a laptop cold start video. I'm not going to delve too much into the history this go around. This is going to be more about generally why I pick the MS-DOS laptops I do for running DOS games and early Windows games. One of the hardest things to find, one of the biggest pieces of unobtainium for vintage laptop computers from the 90s is a good color MS-DOS gaming laptop with sound. As you can see, I have 7. I have 4 NEC Versas in this stack, and then I have 3 NanTans over here. We're going to talk about each computer powered onto a game before I do so, and we're going to, talk about real quick how I got them, and then we're going to kind of talk about what I think is a fair market price for these. Anyway, first one we're going to talk about over here is what I consider one of the closest things to an ultimate 486 MS-DOS laptop. This is a NanTan FMAP9200D. This is a DSTN color screen laptop computer made in 1995. NanTan made these between 93 and 95. It's got a trackball. It's got a 486DX desktop chip in it. This one's a DX266 genuine Intel. I also ran this with an EMD DX4 in it and found it was a little less stable. This particular model is the color version of this, which is a Diamond Flower branded version, known as the FMA9200M. They're identically the same laptop. This also is a DX266 with half the memory. This is a DX266 with 8 megs. Both of them have proprietary memory modules. I found out that these floppy drives on these laptops are pretty standard. If you look on this one, this is my Parts Mutt computer. This is actually an NEC Versa floppy drive running in this NanTan 9200M. Discovering that was nice, because then that means I have parts I can trade between these guys to troubleshoot. The memory and all that's under here. Watch my other video on the 9200D for that. Very nice trackball, very smooth movement. This one's a little cantankerous because it's well used. I just bought this one like maybe about 6-7 months ago for really cheap, because when you boot it up, when you boot this particular laptop computer up, it actually looks really dark on the first boot, and so they thought that the screen was broken. As you can see, the screen on this is not at all broken. It's actually quite bright. And of course, we're playing Ultima 6. These NanTans, both this one and that one, have the ESS 488 sound chip, which nobody really talks about. The 488 has OPL, obviously, because it's playing the Ultima 6 soundtrack right now. This particular version has a 10.3-inch screen, whereas this has a 9.4-inch screen. These are both STN technology. This isn't FSTN. There's still a little ghosting and fast action, but not that much. Like right now, we're fighting this battle with the gargoyle. No, break off battle. So as you can see, that's actually some pretty good graphics there. The mouse cursor does disappear when it moves, so it's not FSTN, but it's still pretty quick response, so it's decent enough for things like Ultima and stuff. The keyboard's alright on these. It's a little sticky in some spots. The arrow keys are great, but typing on it can take a little more energy than needed. Anyway, we'll just briefly boot up the other one and I'll kind of show you around it as well. So this one is also, let me show you the startup on this, because both of these have the startup chime, which you can turn on and off with dip switch number 1. So you can see it's a mono STN, very, 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 very smeary. Mouse cursor disappears. This one's in a little better shape than this one. This one has some serious rot in it. There are times where I've toyed with actually swapping the parts between these two. But the problem is that this screen backing, this screen doesn't fit in that screen backing. I'd have to find a 9.4-inch color screen probably to put in this. Looking at it, this one all works. The batteries didn't leak out like this one did. This one needs the battery terminal pads rebuilt. This one's the one I've done a bunch of wiring and all kinds of crazy crap with it. This one is kept more like a vintage example. As you can see, it's all black and white. But yeah, it's pretty much the same laptop as that. Same sound card, same everything else, even the same CPU, just black and white. That's really it. Black and white isn't too bad to game on, but I actually just mainly more or less have this as a spare backup to transfer all this stuff to, if this one starts failing out or messing up or whatever. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. So this one kind of needs a little bit of work still. This is a BSi made by NanTan. It's a NanTan FMAP9200D. This is the color version of the 3500 with the rare trackball option. Yeah, this is one of the funky ones that has the thumb screw attachment in the back for the battery, which I don't have on it because the battery is a short, and I'm working on that right now. This computer's kind of a work in progress. Right now it's still pretty much original. It's got a dead Varta battery, so I have to go into the CMOS to every time I use it. It's got a 486DX33 under the hood, 8 megabytes of memory, as you can see, 768K plus 640K is 8192, and it's all on SIP RAM under here. We got the original 244 meg hard drive in this that still works, and it's got the laptop size floppy drive that uses a standard floppy connector on it. It's pretty much these NanTan laptops. These are all a great value for the money if you get them at just the right cost, if you don't overspend. This one I paid about $15 for. Yeah, I'm trying to get all this crap off the camera so you can see better. This one, of course, was like $15. This one was around the same price because nobody wanted it. I thought it was color. It ended up being black and white. But it's a really nice example, collector's piece. And then this one right here is color, and it's beat to hell. I paid $35 for it, and it turns out it has a really good screen and really good sound. This doesn't have sound. This did have an ISA expansion module for it that you could get. It thumb screws onto the back. One of the guys on VC Fed's got one of these, and he's doing that with it. And he put a color screen in it. He has one of the original versions of this. The original version, this logo is over here. There's no trackball. There's no vent here, and the screen is slightly smaller, and it's black and white. This is a good choice if you're really wanting to get into hardware hacking, because this is a pretty basic standard computer, and you could do, some electronics stuff with it. I'm actually half tempted to see if maybe there's a way I could put like a Sound Blaster card in the spare space in here or something. I don't know, just something that would do some cool with this computer, because I really think this would be a really neat example to modify. The screen on it's amazing. Your contrast and brightness controls are all over here. This one's one of the ones that uses a regular power supply. What I'm using for my NanTans with the regular barrel jack is this gateway power supply, which actually came with the third one down there. So I got some projects here. This one needs a new Varta battery. This one, I may eventually resell this as a collector's piece because it's in such nice condition. And then this one is my favorite of the NanTans to use. Let's jump over to the NEC Versa and talk about all those a little bit. So now we're going to kind of start at the newest Versa and work our way back. This one's a 1995 NEC Versa P75. This is my token Pentium system that I have. It's kind of dusty. I haven't been using it. It's now a dedicated Windows 95 computer. It too has some CMOS issues I'm working out. Something with the processor board doesn't want to play nice with the motherboard in this one. Or I just have a dead Dell CMOS battery in it, one of the two. But if we look up here, we can go in the setup utility and, take a look at everything and put in the hard drives and all that. This has the Active Matrix 800 by 600 screen. So this is the P75HC. This is the most common version of the P75 you'll run across. Shoot. In the P75, oh, here's that stupid adjustment thing. Whatever. Wait, could they just stop with that? Ha, zoom. All right. I'm learning new things about my phone every day. Anyway, the P75, this is the most common configuration, is the P75HC, which has an 800 by 600 9.4 inch screen. There was also a 10.5 inch screen later on. You can tell because the screen borders are smaller. This is the ideal MS-DOS laptop. And these sometimes, not always, but sometimes these will pop up on eBay for really cheap. And the reason why they pop up really cheap is because they usually have cracked plastic. This thing is being held together by baking soda and super glue for about 2 years, and it's still holding together pretty well. You can see there is some damage back here by the PCMCIA slot, but, you know, what are you going to do? Yeah, focus, dang you, focus. There we go. Let's put it on the center point, right about there. And anyway, this system, yeah, it's sort of, I mean, it's a good little goer for early Windows games, DOS games. The nice part about this is this has the ESS 688, which has OPL3. This has an ESS 488, both those NanTans there with sound. This is going to be cheaper than this is. But this has a benefit in that you have an active matrix LCD, even with the 800 by 600. It's not that terrible. So I like these. Anyway, we'll move on to the next one, and then we'll talk a little bit about the most maxed out a Versa could probably end up being. Alright, this one right here is my NEC Versa M75 HCP, which is a model that didn't really exist because the NEC Versa didn't come in an 800 by 600 touchscreen version. What this really is, this is a sort of a Franken Versa, because it's actually all three of like the rarest models of M75 put together to make one well-working laptop. The innards from this and the screen came from an NEC Versa M75 CP, which is color with a pen. And since it's DOS-Sembra, let's put it into the menu mode. As you can see, it's all letterboxed because this is an 800 by 600 new old stock panel. And it's in beautiful shape, as you can tell, because well, there's Cytex Display Doctor is doing its thing. You can tell that it's a brand new panel. It's nice and bright. It's really easy to read. This is an active matrix screen. These are actually still available on eBay for a fairly decent price. I think I spent $35 for the first one, and then I think $45 for the second one. Yeah, there's a guy on there. If you want to know the part number for the screen, it's NL8060 AC24-01. It's an NEC panel, and as you can see, they're very bright, very vibrant. The camera's not focusing well, but as you can see, the viewing angles are really darn good. It's like having a modern laptop screen on a vintage computer. It's pretty awesome. This one's the touch model, and you can tell because there's this wider ridge over here compared to the non-touch version. You can also tell because there's a gap between the screen that's a little wider. That's for the 3M Micro Touch glass that goes in here. So I'm looking around. I'm going to see if I can get just a cheap import panel and put it in there and wire it in. I mean, they're pretty simple. You just have 4 anodes at each corner and a common ground loop for the middle pin. So yeah, and I believe these are capacitive touch, so just got to find one that's 3M compatible. Now, my favorite thing about the Versa M75, besides the fact that this one has a touch screen on it, is that even though it has a sound card, but it has a Crystal WSS sound card, which gives CD quality audio. However, there is no OPL chip, and at least the 75, maybe the 100s don't have OPL either. To get around this, NEC released a media dock for these that actually allowed you to plug your M75 or V50 or 40EC in, and it gave you the same ESS sound chip as this one down here, but in this computer. But I've been experimenting a little bit with a Sound SCSI card and getting that to work so I could get AdLib FM synth. But ultimately, the plan is there's a guy on Vogons and another guy from Japan who've created PCMCIA sound cards. One of them is called the Card Barker. I think it's OPL only because it's supposed to be like an adaptation of Sergi's Sound Blaster AdLib card. And then the other one, YYZ Kevin's card, is supposed to be a full-on Sound Blaster compatible card. I was thinking if I could get one of those in here with that WSS, this would be the ultimate retro. This would be the penultimate retro 486 laptop, bar none. You have a touchscreen that's removable and flippable to use as a tablet. You have a trackball. You have Sound Blaster. You have WSS, Windows Sound System. This one also triple boots. It runs Windows 95, Windows 4 Workgroups 3.11, and MS-DOS 7.01. This is my favorite. If I had to narrow down to two of these, it would be this, and it would definitely be that 9200M over there. They're just really good goers. This one's a 486 DX475 with 40 megs of RAM. And yeah, all that's left on this really is the touch screen and the sound card expansions that I want to do to it, and that's about it. Now let's move on to the next one. Right here, booting up, we have a 1995 NEC Versa Versa V50. You can tell it's a V from an E because of this screen. I've gotten in arguments with morons on the internet about this quite a few times. There's guys who swear back in the day, up and down, that this was the same as this. But the truth is, I've been looking at the model numbers and what they're marketed as and what originally came with those models, and I've looked at the manuals. That's another thing about these NECs. You can get the owner's manuals for them in help file format and open it up in Windows 3.1 or Windows 95, and it actually has pictures of the laptops in that series in there. And I have the Versa V manual and the Versa E manual. And the Versa V manual shows something like this. The Versa E manual shows the removable screen. So this is a V, and there was only two models. There could have been three. There's the V50 and there's the V75. I really say the V75 might be the better go if you can get your hands on a sound card. This has no sound card. It does have a 486 DX2SL 50 megahertz. The V75 has a DX475 like my M75. These are based on the Versa E. They have a top memory of 20 megabytes, which is what both of these have. Plays well with ATA hard drives. Has a more simplified motherboard. I actually blew the motherboard up in this and actually fixed it myself. It's got a jumpered over 6.3 amp fuse that I'm going to replace at some point. Otherwise, I mean, the Versa V is a really good go, especially if you want a more durable version of the Versa, because these are less prone to breaking than the E and the M and P, as it seems, or especially the ultralight, which crumbles like a piece of cake. This one runs FreeDOS 2.1, so this is my FreeDOS Versa system. 60 gig hard drive, not 80. No sound card. It's a nice little system, and it runs pretty well. Now let's jump over to the Versa E. Now last but certainly not least, we have my oldest, longest owned laptop. This is an NEC Versa 40EC. Yeah, I know it's a little blurry in here. I'm not sure what the hell is going on with autofocus at all. But anyway, this is the Versa 40EC. This is the second version of the Versa. The first version was the Ultralight, which didn't have the trackball. It had a longer memory door like the V here, and but it still had the detachable screens. This one runs MS-DOS 7.01 and Windows 4 Workgroups 3.11. Runs pretty good. It's got a screen on it. That's really nice. No sound card. This is 40 megahertz. This is 50. This is a PC 440. Just for a quick rundown, if you're looking at any NEC laptop, they all start with PC, starting with PC for these Versa Ultralights. You have the PC 49, which is well, actually, you have the PC-17, which is the original ultralight from like '88. The PC-49s, which are in '50s, which are your Versa or NEC ultralight 286 and 386 systems. There may have been a 486 in that series too, but this one, the model numbers are PC 400, 410, 420. The 400 is the 25 megahertz ultralight. 10 is the 25 ultralight. There's also I found out there's one I'm watching for. It's called the Versa Pad. So there's a version of this that was just tablet only called the Versa Pad, and it was a 20 megahertz 486 tablet only system. Be cool to get my hands on one of those. This one though, the 40EC I've had the longest. I've had this since June 2019. 40 megahertz. I've rebuilt this one several times, replaced a lot of parts on it. The Versa E's are the easiest to get parts for. It seems NEC got a lot of contracts. This one came from a Ford Motor Company guy, so being a Ford guy myself, you know, yeah. Being a Ford guy myself, pretty much that's really cool history for this laptop to have. And that's something else that we should probably kind of kick back here and talk about with these laptops. One of the coolest things about vintage computing is learning the history of all these different systems, you know, when you buy them. So I'm going to give you a brief rundown of history on all the 486 laptop and Pentium laptop systems from these. So this 40EC here came from a Ford Motor Company person of some kind, probably an executive, since these are higher end and NECs were much more expensive. It had, you know, some software and some documents from Ford on there, which I can't show, which I wiped off and got rid of. All that's long gone now because I wipe all these. This one has all these, by the way, these NECs have ATA 133 hard drives and huge capacities in them. So that was the story on the 40EC. It was as a Ford Motor Company executive, and then after that, it somehow wound up in somebody's hands, and they put it in storage and said it still worked. And then when I got it, it kind of half worked. It would power on and then power off again. So I replaced the motherboard, and I replaced the screen. I've blown components up doing stupid stuff with this, and I've rewired the power circuit card and replaced components on that. We scoot down next, the Versa V. This I paid I paid $30 something for this. I think $32, not including shipping. So it was about $50 overall. I try not to pay more than $50 for any of these laptops. Some of them are going for like $126, which I think is just ridiculous. The Versa V here was $15, and I think it wasn't even that expensive shipping, so this was a great bargain. This one's in almost great condition. I have a theory that this particular laptop was dropped off it came from a New York computer shop. And I think it was dropped off sometime in like 1996 or 97 for repairs, maybe a hard drive replacement because there was no hard drive in it. And just left there and abandoned. And then, of course, 2021, I think it was when I bought this at the beginning of 2021, they were probably digging through their pile and their shop and found this and went, okay, let's put it on eBay for a cheap price. And of course I bought it as a bare bones Versa V and built it up. This one's actually the Versa that's in the nicest condition. I mean, this one I had to fix with the marble because it just looked absolutely horrid and was cracking everywhere, and reinforce it with baking soda, super glue, and JB Weld. So this one has kind of one of the other interesting tales of what could happen to these. Now, this one has a cool history. So this is actually an amalgamation of two laptops, another computer repair shop clean-out find, and a Louisiana State Hospital computer. So this computer is actually part of a two-part system known as Words Plus System 2000. We'll play with that some more maybe in another video. Words Plus is a company that makes speech hardware, and it's actually closely related to the Deck Talk. It's actually got the same features. There was another YouTuber I was watching, another long-haired guy. He was talking about having the Deck Talk system. Well, Words Plus had their own version for Augmented Alternative Communications, or AAC, called the Words Plus Compact System 2000, but that's another video. So what this laptop was used for was actually as a touch tablet for the hospital for people who couldn't speak. Say they have, what Stephen Hawking had and whatnot. So they're able to communicate using either the same methods as Hawking. There's like a company, I forget the name. They make all the controllers for all this AAC stuff, and you could use breath controllers with it. You could use Atari 2600 joystick. And with all that stuff, you'd be able to alternatively communicate using this laptop. But it also had a feature for kids called Talking Screen, where you touch pictures on the screen and it'll go, "I'm hungry, let's get something to eat." And then you tap a picture of bacon. "I would like some bacon." That's the way it worked on these. So it was really cool to have that kind of a medical history. And I think what happened was when Louisiana State University Hospital was cleaning out their IT closet, they found this and put it up for sale and said it had a cracked screen. When it was just the digitizer that was cracked, the actual screen itself was fine. Actually, I think that screen, parts of it live on in one of these guys. But yeah, this is a very rare touch version, and it's one of the few areas where that flippable screen where you can flip it backwards and flip it up like a tablet is really quite useful. I'm looking forward to getting that working eventually, because I think it might be fun with things like Hoyle Classic Solitaire and stuff to play it like a tablet instead of play it like a laptop. The Versa P75 is ideal. This was another one. I think this was actually in use up until when it was sold. Because when I bought it, it looked like it was used in a mechanic's shop. It was really dirty and really, really well used. I mean, I had to replace the trackball in this with one of my parts trackballs. I bought a couple of 40 ECs for parts that didn't work. And so the trackball in this is from a 40 EC, and, it's also got the big hard drive. This is the 800 by 600 screen, just like this has now. So, yeah, that's kind of the history on that one. And then it came to me, and I used it as my main for a while because it's got the sound card in it and everything. But these P75s, you could tell they were really starting to get cheaper with them to try and push more of these products out and get rid of them. Because right after this model, they came out with the Versa 2000 series. The first two are 486 DX4s, and then the rest are various levels of Pentium ranging from 640 by 480 like 2000 and 4000 series systems, all the way up to like 1280 by 1024, 4000 series systems with a built-in CD-ROM. So that should put you on the Versa. For any of these NEC Versa, I would not pay more than $75 for any of these. I would say $75 for the P75 because it's the ideal, but I would say maybe $50 for the rest of these maximum, and that would be in really good condition, no cracked plastic, tested and working. Anything less, it shouldn't be more than $30. Otherwise, then I wouldn't buy any of them, because the whole reason I got into the NEC Versa series was because of my shopping for this, and this might help some of you. I've been at this with vintage computers for over 20 years, and one of the key things with these is price. And prices, the compacts, IBMs, and Toshibas are bloody expensive. But these, you could get them real cheap because nobody knows what they are and nobody knows how great they are. I mean, NEC made a great product. Sure, the plastic isn't the greatest, but that's kind of how you're going to save on these, is all the cracked plastic. Broken hinges, broken hinges, blown out power supply boards. Actually, let's talk about that. Common problems with these. The 40 EC is the one you want to get if you're feel like you're someone who's going to be prone to having a lot of parts break. You can buy parts for these pretty easily. There's still motherboards available for reasonable cost. Screens are kind of expensive, but you shouldn't need to replace them. These screens are actually pretty durable. This one had something heavy hit it, and that's why I had to replace the screen. And it took it took such a hard hit, I'm surprised the plastic didn't shatter. And that's how much it took to break this screen, and I've traveled with all four of these. So the 40 EC has that, and it has some power board and motherboard issues occasionally. But they're a great laptop, and parts are plentiful. So I'd say for a 40 EC, you might even want to try to get them for as low as 30, maybe 15. The Versa V, it's the same deal. because there's no sound card, but you have a good active matrix screen. So it'd be a good laptop if you don't want sound. The M75, once we have some alternative PCMCIA sound card solutions on the open source makerspace market, these could become one of the new ultimates, especially with a touchscreen. I do need to get a panel for this. The touchscreen's actually very rare on these, but if you find one with it, grab it, even if it doesn't have sound, because those are just cool. The Versa P75, though, that's the ideal. You got Sound Blaster, you have active matrix screen. You could always buy one of these older models and put the 640 by 480 on it if the letterbox bugs you. You could always buy the bigger screen version because there's a version with a 10.4. So that's my opinion on the NEC Versa series. This is much higher end and much nicer than this stuff is. So now we'll talk about NanTan a little bit, and people aren't very aware of NanTan. So NanTan was a Taiwanese laptop company. They also go by the names Kapok, Sager, and Clevo. And their laptops usually don't turn up as a Sager, Kapok, Clevo, or NanTan at all. The only way you can tell is the sticker on the bottom says NanTan Computer Corp on it, which I'm trying to get a lock on that one. So and some of them don't even say NanTan. Some of them just have like NB or FMA. That's why these are known as the FMA laptops, because all the model numbers start with FMA. These 9200s, they're FMAK or FMAP. I'm not sure what the significance of the K or the P is. Maybe Korea versus Philippines manufacturer. Could be a year thing. I don't know. The 3500, I think, is a really good budget laptop. Even the black and white ones are fun to play with, and they have kind of a vibe similar to a Nintendo Game Boy when you're playing on them, which means these would be great for a Game Boy emulator without sound. They don't have sound cards, but they do have standard desktop hardware. However, don't think that means that these are going to be really tolerant of SSDs or any really goofy technology. This one does not play nice with ATA 133 drives at all. Actually, on this one, you have to clamp on a full-size Molex connector to use a different type of hard drive with this, because he's used a special smaller 4-pin connector intended for laptops on full-size desktop hard drives around 91 to 93, I think. The one to really look for with the FMA 3500 is the FMA 3500C, which is what I've got. These also came in active matrix with a smaller screen that's shifted to the side. That is the ideal. That would be another good budget piece. It has this trackball. Trackball's pretty good. It doesn't look like it's that great. It does require some getting used to, because you basically just flick it like that to make it work. I could make some dirty jokes about this trackball, but I've refrained to do so. Some of these are branded. This one's a BSi. It's just a peel-off sticker. Some of these are not. Most of these, when they turn up on eBay, they're sold as the 486DX Professional, because that's what the tag on it says. There's also a 386 version of this that only came in black and white, which is the FMA 3300. And those came with a 486, or came with a 386 SL. You might be able to swap these screens, because it looks like NanTan used the same kind of wiring connections, so you would be able to maybe transplant a color screen to a black and white version with a BIOS switch, possibly. But I'm not 100% sure. It's got Super VGA. It's got the Cirrus Logic CLGT6425. By the way, let's talk about the graphics chips on all these. These NanTans or these NECs all use a WD 90C24, mainly the Versa E and Versa V, and then these two down here, the smart battery laptop versions. These are the M75 and P75. Those use a C&T Chips and Technology 65545 graphics chipset. Really fast. These use Cirrus Logic chipsets. This one has the 6425. 64 are the ones with the LCD controller built in, so these are all going to be 6400 series graphics cards with 1 meg of VRAM. This one might be 512, but I think it said 1 meg, so, you know. The other two down here, this I would suggest you get if you're really on a budget. Look for this big screen. The 9200 is a great laptop, especially if you're a tinkerer, because it's got the desktop 486 CPU in it. They also can be pretty solid. They do have some stability problems the NECs don't have, but these have some raw speed on them, so they feel faster than they are. Like this one, a DX266 feels very close to my DX475 Versa M75. The nice thing about these two, they have ESS 488 Sound Blaster compatible audio, so they work with that. Unfortunately, the Cirrus Logic chipset does have some incompatibility issues with some games like 3D Body Simulator. And I have a problem with games like SimCity on these, any of those EGA graphics mode games coming up all with scrambled characters. However, I think there's a BIOS font feature on these that allows you to switch it up. Anyway, the best version to get would be this. It's got the bigger screen. It's 640 by 480. It's at DSTN, which will make it undesirable to other people, but it's actually decent enough for playing video games. There will be ghosting. There will be some artifacts. It's not always going to be smooth, and yeah, your mouse cursor might disappear, but hey, that's what mouse trails were made for. And I have owned several of these. By the way, these are actually my favorite budget DOS gaming laptop. It was the FMAK and FMAP9200s. But yeah, the ways to spot the color version, of course, you can see this bezel is 9.4, that's 10.3. The 10.3s will always be color. There might be ways to hack a 9.4 inch LCD into these, though, because I've been looking at the pinouts for the screens on these NECs. And it looks like we might be able to, if I can learn the pinout, because these have 3 cables coming off of them. If I could find a way to put an NEC display in this, that'd be pretty sick. And this would actually be the more awesome of the two, especially since the electronics haven't rotted out in it in some spots, because this one, I mean, they're painted. So yeah, out of here, that's pretty much my favorite. Now, when we talk pricing on NanTan, they should be cheaper than these NECs. NECs are nice systems. They're underdogs, though. Not a lot of people really appreciate them. But the NanTans, these are really the underdog. Nobody really knows much about these, and I'm currently trying to detangle the mess of model numbers and stuff on my website. What makes these great, though, is they're a good cheap budget option, especially the 9200, because as a sound card, you have a color screen, you have actually a really nice trackball on this. I love playing the 7th Guest on this computer. This one runs FreeDOS, of course, because I found that was the most stable way to run it. And I'm trying to figure out how to get Ultima 7 running in FreeDOS on this. So yeah, that's my entire philosophy. And there's probably more laptops out there than just these that you could, purchase on eBay for really cheap. A lot more out there, actually. You just have to look for them, and you have to be willing to study the model numbers and look them up. I might eventually end up posting some of these. I'm really thinking this middle one is kind of a nice collector's example versus this, which is beat up and has some soldering done by me in it to make it work. But I like this one a little more because it's a bit more, it's color and it has more of the features I want on it. This is a good budget option. And the NEC Versa, if you're looking for something nice with an active matrix screen, because look how nice that looks. And this is, remember, this is a 30-year-old screen here. And this looks nice and sharp, vibrant. The camera isn't doing it justice because focus is messing up. So it's really all about what you want in a vintage MS-DOS laptop, but this gives you some more 486 options. Just letting you know, they jack up the prices on these on eBay. I'm going to teach you a clever buying strategy real quick. Don't just go out and pay full price for them when they initially post these, because these jackboot posters, they'll post a picture of, something like this, and then they say, untested, not working, $120. I'm like, I'm not going to go ahead and pay $120 unless you can turn that dang thing on and prove to me that it actually runs. And I still won't pay $120. The trick is you put these in your watch list and you sit and you watch patiently. It's like fishing. And then when the price comes down low enough, if they've been reducing the price, you buy it. If not, then you just sit and wait. And sometimes you'll get a discount from the seller on it. And that's how I got some of these at the price I got them at. I think that was the case, I think, with the M75. They dropped the price on it for me and I bought it. It was either that or the P75. Other things to watch for, this may have been 15, but shipping was really expensive on this one. And it's not because it was heavier, it's because people needed to up their shipping game. I use USPS and I just pack stuff really good. That's what I do when I sell. When I buy I don't know what, I think I remember them using UPS for this. And they're a bit expensive in some markets. Some of these I got this one real cheap because it was monochrome and because they actually use USPS for shipping. And they arrived just fine and it's in pretty much mint condition. This one I was expecting it to arrive completely jacked up and I was just going to take the parts from that and make this one color. But that doesn't seem to be happening. Anyway, while we're at it, just to finish this up before this gets too long in the tooth. My plans for these probably in the next few years, because I'm slowing down on my computer stuff now because I've got everything almost dialed in. Replace the battery tabs on this. Maybe look at making this mobile again. I like this laptop a lot. This is one of my keepers, one of the ones I'll never get rid of. Maybe fix this up, sell it as a vintage system, and then get something else in the fold. That if any cool opportunities come up for cheap, maybe like a 386 NEC Ultralight or something like that with a pen. This one up here, I'm keeping this because I just love it, and I had one like it a long time ago. Actually, it might be another one I might swap this with, is the AT&T Safari 3151, because I really love that laptop, which is a Samsung Notemaster, by the way, rebranded. And that was what I had. Actually, oh yeah, good story time about eBay getting a good deal. I once bought 3 laptops for $45 in 2005 or 2004. That was when I got my first laptop, and I was done with twin heads. I got basically this trio, but that middle one would have been the AT&T Safari 3151, and I got all 3 for $45 because they didn't know what the heck they had back then, and they weren't collectible back then. This one is a keeper because it's a hardware hacker special. You can do so much cool stuff with it. Some of it I'm going to try to get it on this channel. I'm moving away from scheduled videos as of 2021 because we're going to be uploading, or 2023 because I'm going to be uploading stuff to also another channel or another service as well at that time, and picking the best stuff and putting it up there. Now let's scoot over here. 40EC, all these guys except for the P75, which I consider done. I just need to replace the CMOS battery. All these guys are going to get some kind of sound card thing. Let's go take a look at the sound card project a little bit that I've worked out. So right here we have my Sound SCSI card, which I think is broken now, but it was working for a time, and I figured out the pin out on it. So it's pins 6 and 7 in this connector. There's only one row of pins that connect up to the sound card, and I actually had OPL going on the M75 on this. I just haven't figured out a way to solder onto the board and get an get the output sent to the speaker. We tried jumpering over to the speaker pin, but I couldn't get the speaker pin to actually send any signal out. So, you know, I'm going to wait until there's a more properly engineered solution for that. I also wanted to kind of show a little bit about how I treat these laptops with regards to cards. I've got several PCMCIA cards here. These are all modems. I tend to share the same 2 or 3 cards with them. For modems, for Wi-Fi, I have a Orinoco Silver Waveland Silver card, which is a really good one. The other one that I use, I have at least 2 Cisco Aeronet LMC 352 cards, which allow me to close the door on the laptop's PCMCIA cage. I have these 3 14.4K modems here that I don't really use for anything, but maybe I'll play with them on my new cable modem because it has 8 RC jacks on it. And then, of course, I also have a wired X-Jack LAN card in similar style. If you want to know what X-Jack is, it's just basically when you open this up and it does like this, so you don't have a dongle. Which means I can leave the card in the laptop and, you know, plug it into the network when I need it to. But I only have one of those right now, and I tend to take that out when I'm not using it because it uses up valuable card space. But yeah, if you were ever curious what was inside your PCMCIA cards looked like, this is it. And this is what the Sound SCSI has, is the 1869, I believe, in it. But yeah, we'll see if I can bring this one back around and start using it again. I might see about building some kind of speaker doodad for the side of this. So anyways, this is CreepingNet signing out. See you in the next video. I think hopefully this was a fun and interesting dissertation about MS-DOS gaming 486 era laptops. See you later.